Hello friends, this is Dan Carlton, founder of the Paragraph Project and Planner U. Today I want to share with you something I call the world's most efficient discussion guide. Now this discussion guide is really crafted for more brand exploratory research, and it's probably best suited for more qualitative research rather than quantitative. What this is ultimately going to provide you is 6 questions that I think will do a good job of creating a well-rounded view of the power and strength of a brand and how it could potentially intersect with consumers' lives. So let me just show you a framework here just to kind of ground the thinking a little bit. If you have taken part in our online course, the Creative Brief Writing course, you will see this within that course, and this will look familiar to you. But for those that haven't, I just want to quickly mention this as background. So this is what we call the proposition wheel. And essentially what it says is that any great message typically is rooted in one of these 6 different dimensions. So you can talk about the attributes of the products, the benefits, how it's used, the users of the product, the ethos of the company behind the product, and then the role that that type of product plays within the world at large. So again, you can get more details about this and how to use it as a brainstorming tool for coming up with propositions for creative briefs or messaging platforms and that sort of thing. You can get that from that Creative Brief training course. I'll link to that below. But another way to use this tool is to start to think about what are the few questions that I need to ask within each of these different kind of dimensions so that I'm making sure that I'm getting a well-rounded view of how people feel about a specific product. I think a lot of research when it comes to like brand exploratory stuff is really focused on these 2 kind of dimensions here. There's some very basic, what do you think about this product? What do you like? What do you don't like? And it really only gives you kind of a small glimpse of that potential that brand has. And what you really need to do is make sure that you have questioning that really kind of explores all these different areas. If you have like a 2-hour, focus group, you can of course, get into all of these different areas at good detail. But if you are doing something a little bit more scrappy, maybe it's like man on the street interviews or something like that, you need to be more efficient. So this is where the world's most efficient discussion guide came in. I was trying to think about, what's the one best question I can ask to really understand how people think about the different attributes as it relates to competitors. What's the one question I can ask to get at benefit? And then, of course, I wanted to move around the circle and think about, what's a question I can ask to get at usage, and then the user profile, the ethos of the company, if consumers see any sort of values behind the company that sells this product, and then the role. So after a lot of trial and error, kind of where I got to were these 6 questions, and I'll kind of go through them quickly just to give you a sense of where we are. Okay, so this first one around attribute, this is a very kind of well-worn question. I'm sure you've all used it before at some point in time, but what are the first words or associations that come to mind when you think about a specific product or brand? So that's pretty straightforward. We've all asked that question before. The benefit. This is really trying to get at the impact that a product has or brand has in people's lives. So this question has worked really well in the past. In what ways does this product or brand make your life better? So we're asking respondents to give really rich information about how that brand kind of improves their lives, and it cuts right to the chase to really uncover that benefit that is a result of those attributes and features that product offers. Usage. There's a lot of different ways to go with usage. You can talk about how it's used, when it's used. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of get into this question. The thing that I've found to be very helpful, most helpful, is this question: tell me about the best experience you've had with this product, or maybe it's the worst experience if you want the other extreme. But leaving it open and giving them room to share anecdotes and replay stories and experiences that they've had with the product is a great way to get some colorful responses without having to ask a series of close ends and trying to piece together the story yourself. Just give them the platform to kind of share their kind of favorite or least favorite experiences with that product or service. The user. So for this, describe the type of people that use this product. Is it a person like them? Is it someone different? What are the similarities and differences? So this can open up great conversation just to get more clarity on how that brand is perceived within different kind of cohorts of the population, and whether or not the respondent sees themselves as part of that community or not. Next one, ethos. So this is a tough question to get at. Like if you're just doing a quick man on the street, it's really hard to kind of get at this sort of insight, but there is a question that we found to be really helpful, really efficient way to get some understanding about this. And the question here is, beyond making money, what do you think this brand cares about most? So are any of the things, any of the values that kind of back up those products, any of the things that that company's doing within the community or the world at large, are those kind of getting translated through the experience, and are consumers picking up on that? Or do they just see them kind of in the business to sell stuff? And then finally, with role, this is a great question. If this type of product no longer existed, what would you do/use instead? The important kind of side note to this question is that this typically works better when you're talking about a category at large rather than a specific brand. So we're not necessarily saying, if Starbucks didn't exist, what would you do instead? Because they would just go to the coffee shop across the street. But if you're asking, what if coffee shops never existed, then all of a sudden you get a better sense of the role that coffee shops play in people's lives, and there might be some interesting strategic fodder there. So again, the whole point of this is, this is by no means meant to replace a more robust, qualitative exploratory into the strengths and opportunities for a brand. But if you are short on time, you have to be really scrappy. Like I said, you might be doing man on the street interviews or some quick Google Hangout interviews or something like that. Making sure that you have at least one good question that opens up conversation with consumers across these 6 different dimensions is going to be huge in helping you cover a lot of ground and making sure that you have some interesting fodder to use as you're building out your strategy. So that's what I have for you today. Again, at the bottom in the comments, I'll link out to the Creative Brief Writing course if you want more information on this model. And then also I'll have a link. Go to planneru.com to sign up for future newsletters so you can be the first to hear of these videos and these little tutorials as they come out. That's what I got for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will talk soon.